Welcome to BrotoGP. This is episode number 52. We are coming at you on a Wednesday, and I think there's some MotoGP going on right now, but we're not really going to get that far into that. So, first things first, this episode is brought to you by Riders Law. Riders Law, they're your California motorcycle accident injury lawyers. They are doing a great job sponsoring road racing throughout California, a little bit across the nation with the MotoAmerica KTM RC Cup. And they're helping me out, and they're helping out BrotoGP. So if you guys ever get into an accident on the street, you ever need some legal help, please hit them up. That's Riders Law with a Z, riderslaw.com. Check them out. They will take really good care of you, I promise. But all right, on the phone with me, as always, is Kevin.
As always,
He's here. He's never going to miss an episode
because they won't record without me.
Yeah, we can't record without the lead singer. I think, what do we say? Dennis was like the road manager, so we could record without him. And
He's like a roadie, exactly.
Yeah, and Everett's the drug addict drummer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we have to replace him constantly.
Yeah. So replacing both of them actually is your 2013 AMA MotoAmerica. Actually, it's not MotoAmerica, just AMA Superbike champion Josh Herrin. So say hi to our fans, Josh.
What's going on, guys? I noticed that fumble there. That was almost a bad one.
Oh, God.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, that wasn't even the worst fumble he's had in the last 5 minutes.
It started out
former Supersport race winner, MotoAmerica Superstock champion Josh Herrin. Former Moto2 rider Josh Herrin.
Yeah, so we got Josh on the phone, hoping to pick his brain and get some talking shit straight from the horse's mouth.
Right? I kind of like talking shit about Rob right off the bat. He's gonna fit right in, guys.
He will fit right in. But all right, so let's dig right into it. So let's start with the most recent stuff first, right? So Josh, you just won the MotoAmerica Superstock 1000 championship this past year, and you had a pretty good battle going with Claudio Corti the whole season, and you managed to come out on top. So how do you want to start us off with that?
Man, I think one of the most surprising things that people might hear was that at the beginning of the year when we started testing that bike, I was like scared that my career was going to be over because I just couldn't get used to the bike. I had no confidence in it. We found out like literally at the second round, I kept having these problems. It almost felt like the brakes were locking up, like the front brake would lock up, and I couldn't figure out how to explain to the team what was going on. At a few of the tests, I kind of thought it was a little bit windy at Thunderhill. I thought maybe it was from the wind, and I kept coming in saying, "Man, I cannot ride it. I can't ride it." They sent Joe Roberts out on it. He went faster than me. I was panicking, and then at we did a Bell photo shoot at Thunderhill, and they had just we filmed for a whole day. Second day, they had the helicopter come out, and right when we went to do our first laps with the helicopter, I freaking crashed coming on the front straightaway. The front wheel locked up, and we had thought that it was the wind the whole time. Well, at the second round, we found out that there was a problem with I want to say it was the calipers, with the Brembo calipers. Something was going on, and it was actually whenever everything would heat up, they would move, and it was causing the tire to actually lock up. And
brutal.
This happened like 50 plus times, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. They thought I was going crazy.
So wait, so you said you discovered that at the second round. How'd you get through the first round?
Oh man, it was terrible. It would really only happen like say 1 or 2 laps into the session. So like for the race, it happened on the warm-up lap, on the sighting lap. No, warm-up. So sighting lap is the first lap that we do. We come to the grid, then we go out for our warm-up lap. Well, on the warm-up lap, it did it going into one of the really slow first gear corners, and I got kind of panicked because I'm about to go out for a race. Like this becomes a safety issue, not only for me but for everybody else.
Right.
So I kind of like slowed up, let everybody go by, felt it, everything felt okay, rolled it, back and forth on the grid, and it felt all right. So luckily it was only happening when everything was cold and just warming up. But we got through that, and then we were at Road Atlanta, which was the second round, and it did it literally on a fifth gear. I mean, the back straight at Road Atlanta is sixth gear wide open, coming over this little wheelie hill, and it locked up straight up and down, just sent me probably like 50 yards, just skidding the front wheel. And somehow that weekend we figured out what was going on. And as soon as we fixed that problem, my whole season just like my confidence just went through the roof. And I felt unbelievable on that bike. Felt like I was on an R6. Everything just started clicking. And from that point on, I felt like a machine. Like I could just go out and just do whatever I wanted with that bike. And it was just an awesome year. I mean, I made some mistakes, which cost us some victories, but it was a really fun year battling with Corti and Fong and Eslick, just all those guys. It was constant battles. It felt like we were in a Moto2 race or Daytona Sportbike back in the AMA days. Just always a bunch of guys up at the front that could win, and it was a really fun year.
So obviously the year before you had returned to America, you had kind of a rough year, and then you come back to America, thinking this is at least my comfort zone. I can get this career back on track. And the first race or two, it's got to be a panic situation. What the heck is happening? You said you're wondering, is my career off track? Obviously, there must have been a point there where you were thinking, you were gripping, shit, what's going on? Before you actually kind of figured out what was happening, were there moments, in the paddock or maybe the night before where you were really second guessing yourself, or was it just a matter of, I got to find the answer to this problem and I'm going to, grind until I get it?
Well, so Moto2 was 2014, then 2015 I did Super Sport on the 600.
Right.
But yeah, when that problem happened on the 1000 at the beginning last year, it was like, it was just the biggest thing. It wasn't like I said, I didn't know it was the brakes until Road Atlanta. But when we were testing and I kept having these problems, and then especially when Joe, my teammate at the time, got on the bike and immediately went quicker than me, I was in full panic mode. I mean, I had no idea what was going on. And, it could have gone a bunch of ways. I could have crumbled and had no confidence in the bike. No confidence in myself, but luckily the team worked really hard and they figured out what was going on. I mean, that's something that you don't, suspect is going wrong. So for them to even figure out that was happening was pretty amazing to me. I got to thank them, because without them, we wouldn't have been nearly as good as we did all year, because even though that was just happening on, say, the warm-up lap of a race, if it happens one time at the start of a race, that's going to throw you off. You're going to be scared thinking it's going to happen during the race. So for that to get fixed, it was huge for sure.
Yeah, then you started kind of clicking on all cylinders, and obviously were able to fight your way all the way through to win the title in Superstock 1000 this year, which kind of leads you to making a step up this year, 2017, to do Superbike again, which obviously you were a former American Superbike champion, and now you're stepping up off of Superstock to Superbike again. Tell us a little bit about how you guys sort of made that decision to move up, invest in a obviously slightly more complex, more expensive class, and think you want to go for another Superbike title. How'd that all come about?
Oh man, it was planned right from the beginning with Amin. Who's the owner of the team that I ride for, Amin Motorsports. I came into it with him and I was like, hey, I'm going to be upfront with you. I need this year it needs to be a building year. I need to get my confidence back. I need to let people know that I didn't lose my talent or something just by going over to Europe. I'm still the same rider that I was. It was just a hard year, and I need to prove to everybody that I can do what I used to so that I can get on a factory team again. That was the initial plan. And we did the first year in 2015, and then we're like, okay, let's jump up to the 1000. There was nobody. I was kind of like bummed out that there wasn't any new factories coming in, or even the people that were already there weren't asking me to ride for them. So I was like, hey, I went back to me and I said, can we continue? Can we jump up to the 1000? He was like, let's do it. He really wanted to do it. And that year went so good that it's like you're really left with only, let's just continue, you know, going with the snowball. Let's see how far we can take
Right.
it. And
Follow the momentum.
yeah, and I mean, that's his dream to be on a superbike, and it's my dream to go and beat those guys heads up, because when I won in 2013, it was, you know, we had a lot of luck on our side, and I want to do it just heads up, and to be able to say that we're racing against factory teams on basically a privateer effort. I mean, it's a not well funded, but you know, fair. We do okay. We could use more help, but it's definitely not a factory team. It's not a factory supported team, and there's no huge money behind us. You know what I mean? And the whole team puts in a lot of work to get the team the way that it is, and to be able to race against factory bikes and hopefully be competitive is like it's a huge thing. Like, I look at it as like the American dream, and like just something that could just be totally epic. So
So I mean, is that your plan this year then, is to fight for wins? Do you think you can fight for wins this season and fight for the title, or are you just hoping to get some wins, some consistent finishes, and build on that?
I mean, I'm going for it. I've never, there is no point in putting my shield down and going out for a race thinking, oh, I hope I can get on the podium. No way. Like, I don't race if that's how I'm going to look at it. I look at it as, I'm going to go beat these guys. I want to be the best that I can be. And I know that the team is capable of doing it. So we just have to put the pieces together and just go out and do what we all know we can do.
So you've obviously ridden for top teams in America, and now you're on, what would be more considered a privateer team. What can you talk about the differences, that, what you do or don't have access to on a privateer team that you did on the top teams, and sort of what you're going to have to overcome comparatively to those? Obviously having ridden for the top teams before you made your move to Europe, returned on the private team now. What is the difference in level of support, comparatively?
Obviously money. I mean, the factory team is millions of dollars being put into it. And it's, and I'm not, nothing that I say is bashing on anybody. I was always so grateful for everything that I had at Yamaha, and it was amazing. But the money that comes at Yamaha is, it's there. They have to ask for it, and yeah, they try hard to get sponsors, and they get some awesome sponsors. But with Amin, it's like, this is his life, and this is, he loves the sport, and I love the sport. It's not a job for either one of us, and it's not a job for anybody that works on the team. They're here because they're die hard, and they love the sport, and they want to see how far we can go, and we want to, be put in the history books, and so I would say that's the biggest difference, is just the drive behind us compared to what would be on a team like a Honda or Suzuki, Kawasaki. It's that we like, just all day, that's all we're thinking about. We just want to be winning races, and that's all we care about.
Do you think that sort of almost underdog status, the team with less money, private team, gives you a little extra drive, almost like a chip on your shoulder, like, I'm here to kind of prove to you guys, we're going to win races. It's kind of like you said before, the American dream, sort of the Americans always love the underdog coming out on top. Do you think being on the smaller team, a more close-knit family where you're not just doing this for race wins, but doing it obviously for your passion and for your team owner, do you think that gives you maybe a little extra drive, a little sort of chip on the shoulder to fight, maybe even harder than you would normally? Or do you think the factory team gives you sort of the expectations that I have to win?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think this is like, even last year in Superstock, I mean, just knowing that we have a semi truck, and we look nice, but that's because in order to get the sponsors, you have to look that way. We're not a struggling team, but we're not funded well, and for us to be competing against those guys, to lead a superbike race on a super stock bike, and that in itself just makes me really hungry. And then I think when I put in the work and get the results, it makes the team realize that it's possible, and then it makes them even more hungry. And it just, like I said earlier, it's like a snowball effect. It's like, man, we can do it. And I think in road racing, you haven't seen that in a really long time. There hasn't been, teams that were privately funded and ran compete with the superbikes or with factory teams. And I think I think we're getting a lot of our motivation from the way that Supercross is going now, where you have a lot of, guys like Chad Reed or Joe Gibbs, like keeping up with the factory teams, and you realize, like, man, I guess it is possible. It's not this thing up on this giant mountain that you can't achieve. And the
only one that we've really seen lately for privateers is like Tenkate Honda in World Superbike, because they're not a legit factory team. But yeah, you're right. There aren't really that many privateers that are able to run up front ever. I mean, would you compare Mean a little bit to Tenkate? Like, do you think the level of expertise and even somewhat technical support is kind of up at that level?
It just goes back to the money thing again. I mean, that's a freaking very well-funded program.
Yeah.
It's really easy to make a team good when you have money. I know, the saying, money can't buy happiness. Well, in motorcycle racing, money can buy whatever you want, and that's gonna.
They don't call it unobtainium for a reason. Sometimes you just can't get it. Yeah.
That's gonna buy you good riders, good crew, everything that you need to go to the races, and whenever you're just gonna get whatever you need to make something work.
Last time I think of anyone pulling that kind of stuff off in AMA was, when I first started racing, when Nicky Hayden was riding in 600 and 750, but he was cheating. You remember those times and then Earl and him were just kind of saying like, well, what do you expect? We're riding on the back of a pickup truck, so.
But I think that it goes back to the whole family atmosphere type deal, though. Like, everybody on Mean Motorsports we're all like a family, and that makes the team run so much better. Like, I think of our team the same way that I think of me and my dad running it out of a trailer when I was 16 going to the AMA races. Like, nobody expected me to get on the podium in my second race or to be battling for fifth when I qualified 16th at MotoAmerica in my first round. But because you're at the track with what I consider my family, and we're having fun, and we're not stressed, and we don't have all these expectations on us, and we're able to just have a good time and be stress-free, we're able to go out and perform and just enjoy ourselves.
Not stressed is a relative term, though. It is still a race weekend.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I still get butterflies and can't eat anything, but it's I mean, being on a factory team, it's insane how much pressure is put on you. And when you're young, you don't really realize it, but when you get older, you start. I think Ben Bostrom, when I was teammates with him, he put it in a really good way, but it also sounded like super weird. But the Bostroms always say things kind of super weird. But
yeah, actually, Ben is from the town I'm from, and I've ridden with him and Torsten a bunch. They're very strange dudes.
But he said something. I remember he said something to the Yamaha guys. It's like, man, you're just picture me like a tree, and you're plucking all my leaves. I was like, what?
What? That sounds like that, right?
He's like, man, I just want to focus on racing, and you're like plucking all my leaves. You're making me do this and do that. And at the end of the day, I have no leaves, and how am I supposed to perform? And I thought about it. Like, the older I get, I'm like, okay, it's still weird, but it makes sense. I mean, we're here to race motorcycles, and they're trying to turn us into like these puppets that have to do all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it's awesome doing that because of anybody in the paddock. I think I enjoy like being around the fans the most, and I interact with everybody on social media the most. But race day is like, I have to even tell like my family, like, hey, I gotta go focus. Like, I need to do this. Just try to go do your own thing. Here's the foods over here. Like, but let me focus on this. And with this team, I can do that. I can sit in the truck and just, focus on the race and go through the track in my head and be ready.
Kev, I think he's
So
telling us not to go bug him at race day at Laguna.
yeah, exactly. Oh no, we're coming. We're bugging us. But I mean, obviously, you talk about pressure and the pressures of race weekends. Butterflies. I mean, you won this, the Superbike title, and then unlike a lot of guys who would stick around, Matt Millad and a couple, you obviously decided to give yourself extra pressure and sort of, go across the pond to, maybe the most, wood chipper of a class
The meat
in
grinder.
racing, obviously the meat grinder, Moto 2. So you didn't rest on your laurels and you thought, I'm going to join a new team. I'm going to Moto 2 and I'm going to, fight off. Obviously you had pretty lofty goals for this year to fight for wins, fight for titles, but even, going into Moto 2 is about as lofty of a goal as you're going to get. Tell us about how that trend, how that came about. You thought to yourself, I'm the champ, but I'm ready to move on to the next phase. How did you come about into Moto 2, and how did that all kind of coalesce to make that jump?
So Moto 2 is something that I had my eyes on ever since the class started. But whenever it started, it was kind of like an iffy class. Like nobody thought it was going to work. Nobody believed in it, and it's turned out to be one of the best classes in the world. But for about 4 years, that's all I could think about was I want to get to Moto 2. I want to get to Moto 2. I hired a manager just to try and make that happen. And whenever that day came that I got the phone call, like, hey, we got the deal. Here's the contract. It was the best day of my life. I mean, that was something that I'd been dreaming of doing, racing on the world stage since I was 10 years old. And I don't want to be like most people and say, oh, since I was 4, but I was brought into racing at a very young age, but I didn't realize till I was like 10, 11, 12 that you could actually do this for a living, and started watching my dad's old GP tapes and stuff. But anyways, so yeah, that was a dream of mine for a really long time, and for it to actually happen was crazy. But
I think
going over there. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's a dream of like half the people on internet forums, is to see an American go over into Moto 2. And I mean,
Yeah.
You were very good on a 600, so with the transition seemed to make sense to everyone.
Yeah, and that's, that was one of the things I think that that hurt me the most, was like thinking I had so much expectation on myself, and I know everybody had expectations for me. And whenever I went over there, it was like testing went really well. Not really well, but there was a few times, like at Valencia, I was 4/10 off of Zarco. And, there was a couple times where I was in the ballpark. I wasn't like way off. I was mid-pack or, towards the front. Valencia test, I was like 8th place or something. But whenever I started to struggle, it was like there was so much pressure from the team. And that was just so unexpected, because the whole deal with that team was it was a 2-year deal. The first year was supposed to be to learn the tracks and
get your feet wet.
Just get my feet wet, learn how to travel, all the flying and learning the people, the paddock, the bike, everything, the tracks. And when the team started putting all this pressure on me, I was like, whoa, like this was supposed to be a learning year. I mean, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not finishing dead last. I'm going out and giving it my all. And the team would literally, I remember we were at Silverstone, and I went into, before I keep going, let me actually correct myself a little bit. The whole team wasn't the problem. My crew chief and my mechanics and, people on the team that were working there were great people. I still have good relationships with all of them. But the higher ups in the team, so
management,
it was really not even the management. Like Johan Stigfeldt he was a good guy. He wanted wanted me to do well, but the middleman between the team manager and the team owner, which was Tony Fernandez, was the guy that for some reason had it out for me. It seemed like he sat me down at Silverstone and was just going on and on after the race. Or I think actually it was Brno. It was my best race of the year. We finished, it wasn't my best finish, but I was the closest to the leaders that I had been all year. I think we finished like 30 seconds from the front, which seems like a lot, but for that class, it's not that much. And I went into the truck. I was like, okay, we're going to have a good meeting. And he just literally started raising his voice at me, just going into me. And I was like, whoa, like this was just me, the team manager, and him inside this truck. Like I had nobody on my side there just to hear everything. And he's like telling me how big of a spoiled punk I am, and they regret signing me, and I'm a 28th place rider, and that's all I'll ever be. And if I fail, I don't
confidence
care.
Inspiring.
Oh no, I've never been ripped into as bad as this got ripped into me, and I was just such a shock that I had nothing even to say to the guy. And I left that race. I was sitting in England waiting for the next round, and then got a phone call saying, actually it was a Twitter message from one of the announcers in MotoGP. He's like, hey, sorry to hear the news. Hopefully you bounce back. And I'm like, what?
What news?
What are you talking about? Yeah, what? I start searching everywhere. I'm like, I can't find anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, sorry, buddy. I thought that it was out already. Don't tell anybody I told you yet. But, they put out what's it called?
A press release?
A press release.
Like no, not a press release. It was like the entry list for the next round. And they had the replacement rider on there. I was like, what? I tried calling the team. Nobody would answer. Tried to call my manager. He had no idea what was going on. And I had my brother and my fiance over there with me. And they're like, I finally got a hold of the team owner or the manager. And he's like, yeah, we had to do it. You weren't getting the results that we wanted. We didn't think you were trying hard. We just, we need to succeed if we want the team to be here next year. Long story short.
That kind of brings up something. You've seen Moto2, regardless of investment level, that new teams struggle mightily. You've seen, Leopard Racing, moved up with Danny Kent, who was a Moto3 champion, obviously someone who's used to traveling, used to the MotoGP circus, used to the tracks, getting, relatively poor results, all things considering. With heavy investment. You've seen one of the critiques is that as it slowly coalesced into kind of a spec class with Calyx, that new teams, the barrier for entry is steep. You have to find the setup. You have to find what basically every other team has been perfecting for the past few years. And I don't know how much of what you experienced with that was down to the fact that, the Caterham team was a relatively new team. And as we've seen, new teams, regardless, struggle heavily in Moto2. Do you kind of feel like maybe some of that was put on to you? Because obviously the replacement rider that we saw, whose results weren't really any kind of improvement over the results you were getting at the time.
Yeah, it's hard to say because that team was extremely well funded, extremely, and so I have no idea where it was coming from, but that's possible. They were saying that there was a lot of pressure from the team owner to get the results, but that guy is an extremely rich guy. He owns AirAsia. He owns all the tuned hotels and all over Europe. They bought 2 brand new semi trucks before the year started, all brand new equipment. There definitely wasn't, any money issues. And then to top it all off, they ended up not even paying me what my salary was. I was supposed to get $100,000 that year, and I didn't get any of it.
Wow,
The entire team got paid, and I didn't get anything. We tried fighting it. The management team that I'm with, they had, offices in London, so they had their lawyers contacting them. But at the end of the day, it was like by the time I fly there, fly back, fly there, fly back, all the travel and the fees for the lawyers, and who knows how long it would have drug on. I wouldn't have, if I even would have won the case, I would have just broke even for all that time and stress. So
brutal.
It's sad to say, but we just gave up on it.
And that year you were obviously teammates with Johan Zarco, who was, results were okay, but, he wasn't setting the world on fire. But then as soon as he switched to, an established team and on the Calyx, went on to be the first Moto2 double world champion. So obviously it did sort of seem like there was a team or a bike issue there. Do you sometimes feel like you just kind of went into the time right when it was turned into sort of a spec class with Calix and the timing was just wrong? Like, do you feel like maybe it was just a bad timing issue, wrong team, wrong bike, or is it just one of those things where you just chalk it up to, hey, I gave it a shot and now I'm on to other stuff?
No, I think it's hard to blame it on the bike because there were so many riders, Tom Luthi, Agater, Zarco. There was a handful of guys that were fighting for wins on Suters. So I can't really say that. I do know one thing. Everybody says that a Calix is extremely easier to set up compared to the Suter. That was my biggest problem, is I was having a really hard time setting that bike up. But I think that the biggest thing out of everything was going over there and not having any help with what should I do? Like, where should I get an apartment? Should I, what to do? I was flying back and forth after the races from America back home or back to the races.
All the way back here. Wow.
Yeah. I wish I would have just had somebody to say, hey, I've been here, done that. You need to get an apartment, just helped out. I mean, that's what I kind of expected, was somebody to kind of guide me, and going over there with nothing was like, that was really hard. But also just the pressure after every practice, every test, and I'm not even talking at the end of the weekend. I'm talking about in the middle of the session when I come in to talk. It's like, you need to go faster. You need to go faster. You can do it. Come on, you need to go faster. It's like, this is my job. I've been doing this my whole life, like professionally for 10 years. I know that I need to go faster. So
right.
Like, shut the hell up. Like, I get it. I'm not a moron. Like, this is how I make my living. I'm not some rich kid that pays for his rides. Like, this is, if I don't succeed, like, I'm going to go do construction with my dad. Like, I get it. You don't need to sit here and, like, ring it, just keep repeating yourself.
Exactly. Right.
Do you think that pressure kind of got into the way of the team actually helping you out with setup? Like, I remember hearing rumors that the team wouldn't even like move the handlebars for you.
They the biggest problem for me at the beginning of the year was my grips. Like, I told them, I was like, hey, I have to run thin grips. Like, they need to be hard and thin. I can't run these thick and squishy grips. Like, there's two things. Like, you need your pegs to feel right. You need your controls to feel right. Like,
yeah,
you need to be able to feel what you're doing. And I couldn't feel what the hell I was doing with these squishy, fat grips. I had no feeling. And they were like, oh, no, we run those. They gave us free grips. I'm like, free grips? Like, I'll buy whatever grips.
Yeah.
I'll buy whatever grips we need. Like, oh, he's a friend of mine. It was Pro Grip. And I was like, dude, take this garbage off my handlebars.
Right.
Like,
you can keep the sticker on the bike.
Yeah,
just
my crew
get
chief,
me whatever grip you want.
my crew chief would just, like, I remember one time he snuck, like, we put other grips on without them knowing, and they didn't even care to, like, put the other grips back on. It's like, dude. And Aaron Yates came to Magella with me and tried helping get the bike set up, and they didn't want to listen to anything. They tried it at the beginning of the weekend, and they're like, oh, no, it's not working. Let's just do our own thing. Danny Walker came to Indy, and he was like, I mean, I'm not speaking for him, but I think he kind of saw too, like, hey, they're not really wanting to do things that we want to do. They just want to kind of go the direction that Zarco is going, and that doesn't work. Like, that doesn't work for me at all. And, I mean, there was just a bunch of stuff. Like, I got Graves pipes. I got Graves exhaust to sponsor the team, and he sent over a new exhaust that went on the left side of the bike instead of the right, and it made like 2 more horsepower. They were giving all those exhausts to Zarco, even though this was coming from my side of the bike.
From you.
Yeah, it's like,
wow.
He's like, why isn't that pipe on Josh's bike? They're like, oh, he runs his shift lever too low, so we can't put that exhaust over there. It's like, what? Like, you didn't say anything to me about that. We could have raised the shift lever up a little bit. Like, what are you talking about? So
yeah, I mean, so it kind of you eventually talking about mean about how once you had the confidence you were riding high, and it just sounds like kind of a situation where building your confidence, which is actually obviously the whole point of the first year. Get used to everything, get used to the logistics, figure out, where I should live or should I travel, and that just kind of all fell apart because you weren't getting the high results they sort of maybe secretly expected off the bat.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not getting paid means that things weren't going like things were expected to begin with.
Yeah, that's for sure. And what sucks too is like going into it, I had the most confidence that I would have ever had in my career. I just won the championship. I had just started being competitive with Hayes at races. I went and, Graves let me go take one of the R6s out at Chuckwalla, and I went out and did like a 46.0 at Chuckwalla, which was like faster than Bobier and Gerloff, any of them had done on one set of tires for the whole, half day that we were there. I immediately got off the R1 from the R6 and did that. Like, I was like riding this wave of confidence I'd never felt before, and then it just got shut down. And it was tough for sure, because I know for a fact that I can go to Moto2 if I'm comfortable on a team and doing, riding like I know I should. I know that I can be competitive at the front, and that's what sucks, going over there and just looking like a failure because we just had a bad year. You look at guys even here in America, like, you have a bad day here, okay, you're still in fifth place. You're second half off, you're still in fifth place. You have a bad day there, you're in dead last. And
or you're out of the points if you're one
and
bad move.
When you see yourself in the tail end of a pack of 30 something guys, almost 40 guys, when I'm coming from being at the front of everything for 15 years and then I go over there and I'm in 28th place, that's hard. They don't prepare you for that. Like, that's hard to see. Like, for a whole day, try riding for a whole day and being a second half off and being 28th place. That's like, what the hell did I get myself into? And then you got people just taking shots at you. It's like, God dang.
So that year, obviously, you were partners with Zarco, who had slightly better results, but his results weren't setting things on fire. He didn't look like who would obviously end up being the two-time champion. Once he got into a different team and bike. When you were partners with him, where do you think you kind of stack up with him? Obviously, someone who in the right situation won 2 titles. Did you think that he was someone who was obviously a double champion waiting in the wings? And do you think you're kind of, on comparison with that in the similar situation that he got himself into?
I mean, he was, that year he was on another level than I was, just because he was experienced and knew everything. If I would have brought him back to America and we were to get on R6s, I feel like I could have handled him. I mean, but being put on a bike that he rode for 4 years in a row, at tracks that he knows and he's been racing on for 6-7 years, and he's familiar with everything, and he has a team that's completely behind him, and the guys at WP Suspension are, kissing his ass because they think he's the best thing ever and not giving you any attention. It's stuff like that's hard, but for sure he's a great rider. But there was some times in testing where I'd get a tow from him and I was right there. So I could see myself, riding with him, but I just couldn't make it happen on the bike. I didn't have the feeling that I needed. But he, the stuff that he did in the pits, he had what it took. He was dedicated. He had the talent, but he also had the drive and the dedication that you need to put the whole package together. That's what the best athletes are. They're the guys that are super talented and they have the work ethic. You look at a guy like Josh Hayes, who has like super crazy work ethic, but he may not be the most talented guy on the grid. He always talks about how, man, I saw, you, or I saw Bobier. I always hear him saying this, like, I saw you guys do this save and I don't understand how you get away with it. That's a dude that I've never seen anybody with as much work ethic as Hayes, but he may not have the talent of a Ben Spies. But guys like Zarco or Marquez or Vinales or, these guys, they have both, and that's what it takes, and he for sure has it. He's a great rider and was a cool dude to be teammates with too.
Do you think that sort of work ethic and raw talent kind of defines the whole Moto2 talent pool? right? Because we've seen that a lot of the riders, like even Zarco and others, they've stuck around in the class for quite a while. Like you brought up Luthi earlier as well, and right, and it seems like they've only really started to win as other riders have kind of left the class and gone on to other things. Like, how do you feel like their talent stacks up to riders that have moved on?
Um, they stick around because they have money. I mean, they have huge companies that are footing the bill. Like that's what most of them are. I mean, it's sad to say, and I don't want to sound like a dick or anything, but
Well, we know
that's what.
we know Tito Rabat's dad like supplies diamonds to the Spanish king or something. So
Yeah, it's Rabat Jewelers. I mean,
Yeah, no, feel free to sound like a dick though. That's kind of like our specialty on MotoGP. So.
yeah, you're really just taking Kevin's spot. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what each one of those guys does. I mean, I'm sure there's a handful of them that, they're there because they earned it. I mean, all of them earned it. They're all badass riders, but there's money behind all of them. There's somebody that's footing the bill, and you can't get that here. I just watched an interview the other day, and it was like John McPhee talking about how, it's so hard for English people to get into the series. I'm like, dude, screw you. Like,
right, as the guy who has a team who's paid for by MotoGP this year.
Yeah,
Dorna
exactly.
is the sponsor for his team this year.
Yeah, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you got, yeah, exactly. Like English talent run by, like it's paid. He even said, thank you to Dorna for funding the team. It's like, dude, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's a joke. And there's so many, like, look at all the French riders. They're like Zarco there's a guy that pays for everything he has. It's called, I don't remember what it's called, but you see it on his helmet. It's like a bunch of dashed lines. And what he does is he paints all the roads in France. Like, he works for he has government jobs, like painting the lines on the ground. But he's loaded. He buys them. Zarco had a practice bike that nobody even knows about. I mean, he had, just like Tito Rabat had, he had his own practice bike, and he'd go ride it. But,
at what track do you remember?
he rode it at Aragon all the time. It had to be, our two practice tracks, so either Almeria or Aragon.
Nice.
And he was always there. I mean, Rabat was constantly spinning laps, and it's because they're so freaking, backed by all this money that they can just go do all this stuff. And that's one of the biggest differences, and that's why they stay around. You don't see that with people from America. Like, the only, American Honda funded Nicky Hayden to go whenever he went. Like, that's what I heard, that was a lot of his budget or the budget for him to be there was from American Honda. So that was awesome to get him there. But once he got there, it's like he went off of his talent, but getting there is the hard part.
Right, and you even see that obviously when Hayden switched from Ducati back to when he was riding for Aspar, it was American Honda paying his salary, and then the switch to Tenkate involves obviously American Honda helping him out now as well. So outside of sort of Hayden's natural marketability when it comes to America and American Honda, there's not a lot of American riders getting the chance or the funding to put them on a team. With learning years, with, backing practice bikes, test tracks, and all that stuff. Or even, like you said, it comes down to something as simple as logistics. Where do I sleep? I mean, where is a regular bed to sleep in to have a routine so I can think about just riding as opposed to where am I going to stay for the next week? How am I going to get home? I'm spending, 12 hours on a plane, 20 hours on a plane every week. That kind of stuff adds up, obviously, as you said, and it makes a huge difference. Confidence seems to be, the whole kind of theme is the rider needs to be confident, focused, and relaxed to get the best out of what he can do.
Yeah, exactly. You have to. And for sure traveling like that didn't help. And I wish I would have known a little bit better, but it was just something that once I kind of realized it midway through the season, it was like, dude, I'm not getting paid by the team. I need to make sure that I got enough money. I don't know if I can. It's way too much to think about now to try and get a place and figure out getting a car and all this stuff. I remember midway through the season, I met Paul and Nick Fannin, which I don't know if you know who they are, but they supply all the motorhomes for the GP riders. So pretty much 90% of the motorhomes that they see, it's a family. Yeah, I think they have like 10 motorhomes that go to each race or something. But like 90% of the rigs that you see there, it's brought by them. They take care of them, and they put me up in like Rossi's old motorhome in Belgium. That's where they're based, and we stayed in Belgium for like a month, and that was like the best that I felt the whole time, because I could actually train, I could get on the sleeping schedule, I could start learning the culture, and I felt really good. But that was just it was short lived.
So
Right.
you've really presented like kind of a new side to the whole Moto2 paddock, right? Like saying that there's a lot of money behind all these other riders and how they have these extra comforts that someone that's outside doesn't really get. Do you think the Moto2 class and this talent pool is actually working to kind of progress motorcycle racing in the direction that it needs to go? Right? Like we've constantly questioned whether or not Moto2 can prepare a rider for MotoGP in the state that it's at. And I would think that most people agree that it can't. I mean, they're changing the rules big time. Like what from actually racing there and from seeing this, do you think that it can?
Sorry, I lost you there. Do I think that it can what?
Do you
Well,
think
there's
go ahead.
go ahead, Rob.
Do you think that Moto2 actually can prepare people to be better racers, to race in GP or to even race and win
Oh
in
yeah,
Superbike?
yeah, for sure. Just because of the talent level. I mean, there's so many guys that every single guy that's racing in Moto2 could win a race in America. Every single one.
But I mean,
And
but is it enough though, right? Because we know that GP is such a huge step above that.
it's, but I think that every guy that's battling for wins in Moto2 is just as good as the guys in the top 10 in MotoGP. It's just getting the time on the bike, getting the opportunity, and you know, adapting to the bike. I mean, that's
So
that's kind of how I.
And getting
That
that comfort level like you've been talking about, which obviously wasn't there for you in Moto 2.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously you need to get the comfort level, but it's
So one thing, Josh, is you mentioned, which is kind of a perfect segue to something I want to talk about, is anyone who's in the top 10 in Moto2 could win a race in America, and we did see the inaugural Moto2 champion Toni Elias come to America this year and be pretty darn competitive right off the bat. He came into the Superbike team on the Yoshimura bike and won some races, ended up fighting for the title. Was kind of exciting and all that. So I think that definitely proves what you're saying about that. Do you think that Elias's success in MotoAmerica will lead to more riders maybe making the jump over to here? Come it's sort of a backwards transition, so to speak, not backwards, but obviously opposite direction, where guys are coming here to try and get some success in America, ride for some teams, and Elias proving that if you're pretty good at Moto2 and a pretty good international rider, you're going to do well and have a spot in America.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at how it was 10 years ago, that's how it was. I mean, you had Neil Hodgson, James Ellison, Ben Attard, you had the Goberts. I mean, there's Troy. Didn't Troy Bayliss come and do a race, or he raced here for a season or two?
Yeah, way back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you had all kinds of guys that were over here from there, and I think it's going to go both ways. It's going to help. It's going to help, like, make our series look better, and more Europeans are going to want to come race here. But it's also going to make us look better, and in return, it's going to get us rides over there, hopefully. And I kind of lost my thought there, but there was like 3 riders I remember at the end of last year that were asking me, people I met in Europe, like, hey man, do you know of any rides available in America? I really want to come race there. I mean, these weren't
Really?
guys that were like, I mean, Livio Loy, I remember even asking, Robin Mulhauser, who was, he wasn't a front runner in Moto2. He's like a 20th place guy in Moto2, but still fast as hell. Gino Ray. I mean, there was a bunch of guys that were like, how do you know of any rides over there? Like, they want to come. I mean, they want to come wherever they think that they can get paid a bunch of money here. That's the big thing, I think. But even, Corti too. I mean, that's him coming over and doing well. I mean, it just looks good. Matthew Schultz. I mean, there's a bunch of guys over here that are fighting for race wins that are from over there.
Wait,
Well, it's obviously
can they get
it's
paid a bunch of money?
more.
Hold on, Kev. Can they get paid
Okay.
a bunch of money?
What's that?
Can they get paid a bunch of money? Do we have money in American road racing?
Dude, I mean, the factory guys do for sure. I mean, there was, man, in 2000, I mean, okay, obviously now I don't know as much, but I mean, when I won the Daytona 200, I got 120 grand.
Damn. Yeah,
Nice.
I mean,
the
I'm not,
purse is still
I don't,
there.
I'm like the last person that ever talks about my money, and that's the first time I've ever actually made that like public, like how much money I've made. But I mean, the money is, you can make good money. You have to be winning though. That's the thing. You know, there's always ways to make money too, that not illegal ways, but there's just ways that you can make money in racing that a lot of people don't know about, that I'm not going to
Oh,
talk
there's plenty
about.
of legal ways too, though, right? I mean, there's some solid money laundering taking place in Europe.
Oh
But,
yeah, for sure.
but one of the things for sure is that, you know, and not to go off personal thing, but when Elias was winning our Instagram, I was getting messages from people, oh, you know, did Elias win and this and that. It was bringing more eyes to the sport, and if you can obviously get a more international flavor, more eyes to sport. There, you know, in the heyday of AMA, you know, I live not far from Sears Point, like 8 minutes from Sears Point. I remember you could not get in and out of the town or around that area when AMA was in. It was blowing up, and it was full of international riders, like you said, Hogston and a couple other guys. You know, HRC had 3 bikes. Ben Bostrom was super popular. You know, if you can bring obviously more an influx of European talent that's looking for decent rides, that's just better for AMA, or excuse me, for MotoAmerica in general. And you wonder, you know, how much is Dorna and MotoAmerica investing in getting some international flair for more eyes on the rider? Are you looking as a rider, even though obviously they're competing against you for potential rides or salaries? Are you hoping that those guys come over more for more eyes on the product and obviously more sponsor, possibilities, more money for the series? Is that something you as, you know, a writer is looking to have more international flair and talent coming to the series?
I don't know. I feel like we're getting political now. You're gonna have to ask Donald Trump what he thinks.
Nice. He's gonna make MotoAmerica great again. Tremendous.
I hope they come race. I mean, it helps me. You know, if I can go and beat them. I mean, here's the thing. Like, people always bitch about, oh, you're towing, you're getting a tow off me, and you're seeing my lines. Like, my opinion, if you're gonna take a tow from me, or if I'm gonna take a tow from you, it doesn't matter, because come race day, like, the better rider's gonna win. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. So if they want to come over here and race, like, go ahead. If you're gonna beat me, you're gonna beat me. Like, I want to race the best. I don't want to race the guys that are like the best in this country. Like, I want to race the best people that I can race. If I can't make it back to Moto2 or GP or World Superbike, I still want to be racing the best possible people that I can. And so I hope that they come over, and I hope that, you know, the American guys can continue to win. But I hope that the Euros can win some races, because it just makes everybody look better, and it makes our series stronger. So yeah, I mean, as long as even if they're beating me and they take my rides, I mean, that's racing. I mean, if we were in a normal sport where it was, you know, say like football, that's gonna happen. I mean, you gotta work your ass off and, you know, take risk to get reward. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to do that, then you're going to lose your ride either way. So there's young kids coming up, you know, Ashton Yates, Brandon Posh, Anthony Mazziato, Joe Roberts. Like, there's hungry kids everywhere. So those guys coming over from Europe is just going to make our series stronger. It's going to make factories want to come in. It's going to bring sponsors from Europe over that want to have a bigger presence in America, and it's going to bring all the eyes over. It's going to make people want them to broadcast races online instead of just on TV, and everything's going to be better. It's a win-win.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's sort of a two-way street. If guys come over here and have success, that brings eyes to the sport. But at the same time, if you end up beating those guys in the end, that raises your level, the prestige of the series, and sort of, it's like the tide raises all boats, so to speak. But you mentioned something about, whether I go back to Moto2 or GP or whatever. Do you feel like you have unfinished business in Europe, like maybe a World Supersport ride or a World Superbike ride is in the books, or have you thought to myself, I've closed that chapter on and I'm focusing on my national career from now on?
I always go back and forth on it, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to be happy until I accomplish my goals, or at least until I know I left everything on the table and there was no possible way that I could have done better. And so I have tons of unfinished business over there. My whole life I've thought I could be one of the best riders in the world, and I want to prove that. There's so many people that will be listening to this thinking like, not a chance. But if you believe in yourself and you have the right people around you and you put in the work, anything, when people say anything is possible, I don't think that's true. You have to have the talent, you have to have the experience. But I think that it is possible for me to get back over there and to prove that America isn't slow. I mean, by me going over there and having a shit year, that probably hurt a lot of people's chance of going over there, and that's a hard pill to swallow, knowing like, hey, there's a chance that Bobier or Joe Roberts doesn't get a Moto2 ride because Josh Herrin effed it up. That sucks. But I know deep down it wasn't my fault completely, and I want to go back and prove that I belong there. I don't want to be the guy that crawls back home with his tail between his legs. I want to go over there and fight for what I know I deserve and what everybody that's ever supported me knows is possible. And the reason why my dad and mom and family, freaking didn't get to do normal stuff growing up because they were worried about me getting to do the sport that I belong in.
Right. I mean, that sort of goes to my underdog mention, early on in the recording when you're talking about being with Mean and how giving that kind of a chip on your shoulder. Do you think that obviously the bump in the road there internationally is only sort of fueling you, almost like a fire or a little bit of anger, kind of, something to prove goes a long way in a competitive spirit, and thinking, I'm going to get back and I'm going to prove, I have the talent level that I think I have, that my parents think I have, and that, I know that I have in the right situation. Do you feel like, in the end, maybe a rough season fueled you in a level that you wouldn't have had otherwise?
I think so for sure. Whenever somebody, gets a face full of reality, it makes them wake up. Like I said before, I don't think it was totally my fault, but there was definitely some things that I could have done differently to make it better. But getting hit with, what I got hit with made me kind of wake up and realize, like, dude, you need to, like, you should have known where to go and what to do. You should have been asking all these questions. So I blame myself for sure, and that fuels me and makes me want to go back and prove all the people wrong that don't think it's possible for me to be competitive in Europe, for sure. And not only that, but win races here. People that said, oh, 2013 was luck, and AMA rigged it, or Hayes just messed up, that's why you won. Like, no, I tried so freaking hard last year to be at the front on a super stock bike, just to prove people wrong and rub it in. Like, I would have done
because
anything.
For some of those listeners who don't know, in MotoAmerica, Superstock and Superbike race at the same time. So Josh was, on a far closer to stock bike leading Superbike races, sort of proving he had the speed on a much lower spec bike.
Yeah, and I would do anything to get VIR back and to be able to finish the race that Roger took me out in, which he didn't do it intentionally, for sure. It was an accident, but I just wish that I could have, even if I could have had half the race just to prove that I had what it took to be up there, it would have been awesome.
Go ahead, Rob.
Speaking of VIR, So we have this one question here at the end of our little syllabus. Should I race at VIR or Road Atlanta this year? Or sorry, Road America.
VIR for sure. Road America. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, I've done really good at Road America. Like, it's one of my favorite tracks just because I've done good. But if I would not have done good, I would hate it. Like, I honestly hate that track. But the people are awesome there, and I do good, so I love it. But
It's a love-hate relationship.
It's amazing how that works.
But VIR is dude. That's like one of my favorite tracks in the world. It's an awesome track, and I have a lot of history there, and it's just a cool event. So I would do VIR for sure.
Done.
What is your actual favorite track in the world?
The Herrin Compound, man.
The Herrin Compound.
But no, like tracks that we race on, I don't know. It's
any track, any road race, any road course you've ridden, anyone.
Probably Buttonwillow.
I love that.
Oh, really?
So much.
That's just fucking.
That's my favorite non-pro like racetrack.
It's a crap hole.
They repaved it. It's so much better now.
I'm going there this weekend actually for the Let's Ride track day. So,
oh, really?
But
nice.
Yeah, but it's counterclockwise and wait, right?
Oh yeah, counter. No, I don't like counter as much. We don't race that way.
I hate it.
Yeah.
No, but I hate counterclockwise. But Buttonwillow is a fun track. But
yeah. My best story from Buttonwillow was a guy's chain flying off and hitting me straight in the helmet.
Oh man, you got lucky you're not dead.
I know. Yeah, it literally annihilated my helmet, but I didn't even crash. But it flew off and hit me straight in the face.
Did you ever play that video game? I think it was like Road Rash.
Oh
yeah.
God, yes. Of course.
That reminded me of that.
Kevin's face actually looks like he got hit in the face with a chain right now.
Yes, I currently have a massive black eye. So if you're on our Instagram, look at the stories the next 24 hours.
Valentine's Day didn't go good for you, or
it did not go well.
That's what I said too.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But no, going back to my favorite track, like I didn't have like a favorite track when I was in Europe because I sucked so bad that like nothing was like fun. So
goddamn.
My favorite track would probably
be
it'd be like Barber or Laguna. Like they kind of remind me of each other. Barber, Laguna, VIR, like they all kind of have the same like elevation and layout. Like they're really short. I like super short tracks, so like that's probably the reason why I didn't have a favorite track in Europe too, is because they're all really long and stretched out, super wide. Like I like to be like, super tight, like constantly having to work, no break, like blind corners and just on the edge, like, oh, I'm about to freaking crash, like every corner. Like that's what I love. And I've always kind of gone by like, I don't know like the exact saying for it, but like if everything feels smooth, like you're going slow, like you need to pick it up. So I'm like,
well, so that means
you've been on the ragged edge.
So everything you're saying is telling me you weren't joking about Buttonwillow being your favorite track, because you totally read the whole thing.
Buttonwillow like was so fun on an R6 to me, but it scares the shit out of me on a 1000. Like I don't know what it is, but I like can't see the edge of the track hardly ever. Like I always feel like I'm gonna like tuck my front wheel in the dirt on accident, and like that just scares the crap out of me. And
you've probably seen plenty of other people do the exact same thing. So yeah,
it's like every time I ride at Buttonwillow too, it's for a track day. So I'm like super scared and on edge anyways, because whenever I do track days, I have like this mental block. Like I can't help it. I'm slow as shit when I go to a track day. Like there's nothing you can do. You couldn't give me $1 million to go and do the same lap times that I do at a track day, or like at a race at a track day. Even if there was no like riders on the track, I still just couldn't go fast. I don't know why.
That's because it's like
I feel like
Allen Iverson said, we just talk about practice. It's not a race weekend.
It's practice.
What did he say?
Yeah. Oh no, that was just an old funny quote where Allen Iverson talked about how practice didn't matter. Who cares about practice? The basketball player. We tried to reference it once an episode, so I just snuck that one in.
Yeah, Allen Iverson was like one of my favorite players, but I've never heard that saying. But practice sucks. Like I hate practice. I hate testing. I hate practice. I hate qualifying. Like, I'm a racer. Like, that's all I care about. Like, whenever the flag drops, like, I'm going to be on your ass. You can be 3 seconds a lap faster than me when we're qualifying, but as soon as that flag drops, I'm going to be stuck to you like a fly on crap.
Wait,
Nice.
so Dennis wants to know then, is that how he passed you at Laguna because you hate track days?
Did he pass me?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good answer. You didn't pass me.
Yeah, I probably did. I'm not kidding. I'm
Oh,
seriously
man.
so slow. I went with all my no offense to them because I love them, but I don't know if you know a guy named Fabrice.
Yeah, no, I hang out with Fabrice when at the race events. Me and him race Ware together.
Okay, cool. So he's a buddy of mine. Like, he was like at the track day that we went to, he was probably quicker than me. And like, I didn't even want to say anything to him. I was so embarrassed. I was like, dude, like, I can't go any faster. I feel so slow right now. I'm like Johnny Rock Cage.
Nice.
Oh my God, there's the shade.
There it is. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Fabrice was the last time I saw him. He was splitting bikes with Bryce, who is your kind of de facto teammate on Amin's team. So yeah, I mean, he's on a good bike. He can go fast.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sure. Oh no, I was on Fabrice's bike though. That's the
Oh,
problem.
okay. You were sharing bikes with him too.
So you're talking about like C group slow, or you're like a solid B group?
Oh no. Faster than the track day guys, but I feel like I'm going like sea level.
Nice.
It's okay. Kevin only rides scooters around the racetrack, so he knows what it really is to go slow. But he posts social media while doing it.
Yes,
Oh,
I
man.
did. I did Facebook Live me destroying Dennis's third gear on his scooter.
All right, Josh. So I got to put you on the spot here. Are you going to join us again?
Oh, for sure. This has been cool. It's like the only show that I've done where I could actually like feel like I can open up. I'm sure I'm gonna have some Amin's probably gonna call me like, dude, why were you cussing so much on that interview? Never cuss on any interview.
Right. We are explicitly rated on iTunes, so
Yeah.
you can just point that out. I mean,
Are you really?
Yes.
yeah, oh, dude, most of our reviews on iTunes are our fans talking shit about other podcasts.
And about how British they are.
Yes.
Like, you guys need to get interviews with BrotoGP.
What's that?
So I'm gonna tell all the racers, you guys need to interview Eslick.
Yes.
We're down.
Yeah, that's like an After Dark episode. That's
Like Elias and like Richie Escalante and just talk crap on them because they can't understand you.
Yes, that's why I want to get Elias on and just talk and just mix in a little Spanish to make him think he's in, but just talking behind.
All right, everyone. We got to wrap this episode up. It's been about an hour. This has been Josh Herrin, your former Superbike and potentially future Superbike MotoAmerica champion.
I'm betting money tomorrow.
There we go. Josh, we hope you have a very good year, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again sometime later this season.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for having me on. I really appreciate it, and look forward to some future interviews.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Have a good one, guys. Later.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.